If you missed anything pro wrestling this week, you missed nothing. And honestly, I don't blame you for not watching. I started this podcast 5 months ago. 5 months ago, and on one of the very first episodes, I said booking and creative in 2025 was by far some of the worst booking and creative I have personally ever seen. Granted, there's a special spot for 2019 and 2020 that remains at number 1, but this is definitely within the top 5. And now, in 2026, WWE and AEW, both companies, are starting to reach towards that top 5 spot, and it's not a good top 5 you want to be in. But luckily for you, I sat through all the pro wrestling this week, and I am going to tell you what happened, why it happened, what my personal opinions are of what happened. And needless to say, it's all over the place. Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns battled at Backlash, and it seems like their Bloodline story is far from over. AEW paid tribute to a man that simply, without his influence and his impact, pro wrestling would look very, very different without him. Outside of that, they did nothing. And SmackDown, I can't believe I'm saying this. SmackDown, their main event was the Gingerbread Man's funeral. Yes, seriously, I did not stutter. The Gingerbread Man's funeral was the main event of pro wrestling on a Friday night. This week was all over the place. And on top of all of that, we also had a PLE. Backlash happened out of Tampa. And from an in-ring standpoint, it was actually pretty good. So yes, today we are going to talk about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly of this week in pro wrestling.
Summon the Spectre.
Welcome to episode 17 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I am your host, JariSpectre, aka the Spectre Jaden Mercer. And this is the podcast where we break down everything in the world of pro wrestling, where we call it exactly how we see it, whether it's cinema or it's garbage. And honestly, it's been both. There's been pieces and little glimpses of things that could be absolutely fantastic. And then there's just a lot of creative malpractice. On one hand, Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu are putting on some decent yet predictable bloodline storytelling. And on the completely other hand, SmackDown is giving us gingerbread men garbage. I wish I was joking. I really wish I was joking. But I'm not. And we're going to get there, because boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about it. But honestly, episode 17, we are going to start with the PLE that happened on Saturday, and that was Backlash out of Tampa. The show itself was solid. I know a lot of people thought that it was either a really solid show, they were very entertained, it did the job, it did its purpose. And then on the other side of the fence, there was a lot of people saying the creative was garbage, the matches were stupid, a lot of it was just a waste of time. Each side of the fence is right in a certain sense. I am very much kind of in the middle. I lean a little more towards it was good, but it wasn't premium. WWE wants to tout that they're no longer using a pay-per-view format. It honestly would make more sense if they did. because you are asking your consumers to pay up the ass for nothing. So no, it should be considered a pay-per-view. PLE, premium live events, should feel big. They should feel special. When I sat down and I watched Backlash on Saturday, actually, no, it wasn't Saturday. I watched it on Sunday because I was out at a groomsmen party on Saturday. When I sat down and watched Backlash on Sunday, I just thought to myself, man, this just seems like a Saturday night's main event. I'm going to be completely honest. That's what I personally felt like I was watching. But from an in-ring standpoint, the matches themselves, they were solid. Granted, Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker had a few botches here and there. Trick Williams and Sami Zayn was so gutted and infected with Gingerbread Man trauma and garbage that nobody even cared about the match. The best match of the entire night was Io Sky versus Asuka. And on top of that, we had a Danhausen and Minihausen versus Kit Wilson and Miz tag match, which actually, from a comedy standpoint, it was entertaining. You can't tell me that when you sat down and watched it, that you weren't entertained. You know what you're getting with Danhausen. You're getting comedy. And that's exactly what that tag match was. And then the main event. Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu both put on a stellar main event. Does it rank amongst the Roman Reigns and CM Punks of the world? Absolutely not. That is an anomaly. That is an outlier. There's no way they were going to touch that. But for a main event of a very much C-level pay-per-view, they delivered. Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker opened the show. I'm not going to go move by move and what I thought and saw of the entire sequence. We're going to save that for a film study if that's the case. But obviously, we're going to wait to see how things go with that playlist coming up. If you guys are looking forward to it, go ahead, hit that card. Starting on Friday, film study. Episode 1 is going to be Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson. Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker opened the show. It was a solid opener. I will be completely honest. I thought the match itself and the structure and the pacing was solid. But like I said, there were a couple botches here and there. Seth Rollins tried to do the float over clothesline that Will Ospreay typically does, and the timing was off. They were too loose when they should have been tighter, and it just crumbled, and it looked like shit. Not saying that either men were at fault or that it was a bad sequence and it shouldn't have been done, but this is, it's pro wrestling. It's not ballet. But then I would see a bunch of slander online from a bunch of fucking dimwits that think that they know what they're talking about. Braun Breaker is a hell of a wrestler. Seth Rollins is by far one of the best wrestlers of this generation. And I feel like people are so quick to forget how good both men actually are. And granted, with those botches that were had, you also have to take into consideration Seth Rollins has only had one legit match since his injury. And this was Braun Breaker's first match since his injury. It's almost like they had to force the feud to continue, but both men didn't have enough ring rust shaken off. And it showed. It's not that the match was bad. Like I said, it was very good. But those little things, those little minute details is what kind of hurt it from an overall standpoint. I still think that the right outcome happened. Braun Breaker beat Seth Rollins clean. ended up taking 3 spears to do it, which were killing Braun Breaker's spear if that's the case. I don't even want to fully dive into that part yet. It should only take 1 spear to beat Seth Rollins. It should take 1 spear to beat anybody. Pro wrestling, as far as a match standpoint, is running into an issue now where finishers don't finish. And that's going to be a problem. And it's only going to get worse before it gets better. But it took 3 spears to beat Seth Rollins. The match itself went 21 minutes and 26 seconds. Overall, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. And that is including the botches. If the botches never happened, I probably would have gave it an 8.5. That's just my personal opinion. I know everybody else out there has a different opinion. But the structuring, the pacing, and the execution overall was fine outside of those 2 spots. The second spot that I didn't bring up quite yet was Seth Rollins was about to eat a Frankensteiner from Braun Breaker. And as Braun goes for the Frankensteiner, Seth Rollins tries to do the Will Ospreay flip out of the Hurricane Rana and out of the Frankensteiner and land on his feet. And he messed it up. Not once. He eventually got it on the second time, but the second time was not looking pretty. I don't know if they didn't practice it in rehearsals or if they just trusted each other in the moment. But something like that needs to be done in rehearsals. I could be completely wrong there. But either way. So I do feel like both men got a lot of slander from their match, which was, in my honest opinion, I thought it was very, very unnecessary. United States Championship, Trick Williams versus Sami Zayn. From an in-ring standpoint, it was solid. It was a nice little, I don't want to call it bathroom break match, but as far as the card and the pacing, because there's not enough matches on a PLE, this was considered the bathroom break. It was nothing really special. There was no mention of the Gingerbread Man. No signs, no nothing of that. But both men actually did really solid in this match. Little Yachty makes a solid valet for Trick Williams. I will say that. Outside of the hokey fucking nonsense that creative gives to Yachty and Trick Williams, they're making the most out of the shittiest situation. You hear it all the time from wrestling interviews and from just talking to wrestlers. You're given chicken shit, make it chicken salad. That's what Trick Williams and Little Yachty are doing their best to do. And Sami Zayn, poor Sami Zayn, man. You are getting absolutely just booed out of the building. And the guy, I mean, he can work his ass off. Dude has a 10-year career. He knows what he's doing. And he executes night in and night out. But his booking and his creative has been so hot booty cheeks that at this rate, it would be better for him to just take a break. Get out. Just take a break. Be like, this is not, you can't keep going down this road unless this is the character he's trying to eventually evolve into. But that's what we want to do with Sami Zayn? Are you kidding me? No, we can't be doing that. No. But it was a solid match. It went 13 minutes. So already, just off of the strength of what we got from WrestleMania Night 1, it's already better. Matches are going longer. They're giving more time to these wrestlers to go out and tell a story and enhance their stories. And on top of all of that, they are also less commercials. Maybe not even less commercials. It seemed like WWE did a good job at structuring when to do commercials. Versus, oh, here's 7 minutes of a match. Now here's 15 fucking minutes of commercials. They did a much better job this time around. This is at least a little more tolerable. But either way, Trick Williams retains the United States Championship. There's no way they were going to take the title off of him so quickly, so soon. I do feel like he's going to hold this at least till SummerSlam, and then eventually we'll kind of gauge to see where he's at from there. Hell, if they even want to keep the title on him longer, they could. I don't see why they would want to take the title off of him. He's so over right now. But that will remain to be seen. Trick Williams retains, and nothing crazy happened in this match. Danhausen and the mystery partner versus The Miz and Kit Wilson. The mystery partner ended up being El Torito. Do you guys remember Los Matadores from about a decade ago? You know that little bowl? That was Danhausen's partner, dressed up as mini Danhausen. Granted, like I said in the intro, this was entertaining. Regardless of what you feel about comedy pro wrestling, this was entertaining. It was very fun, and what they did in ring was fine. There weren't any major botches. All the men in this match, Kit, Miz, El Torito, and Danhausen, they did a phenomenal job. And Kit Wilson, I will say, is one hell of a seller. Dude knows how to get from point A to point B, because the amount of times I saw him get knocked to the outside, and he definitely was not in the position to get knocked to the outside, it's literally hats off to him. Kit Wilson's a great, solid seller in the ring. And if they keep giving him more chances and more opportunities to succeed, hell, he's got a future. I know a lot of people were like, oh, fuck Kit Wilson. Like, he's not bad. He's really not that bad. And then towards the end of the match, Kit grabbed Minihausen and he threw him into the cloning machine that we saw on SmackDown. We're going to get there here in a second. He threw Minihausen into the cloning machine, and then the midget Danhausens popped down the door and they attacked Kit Wilson, which my immediate thought was that should have been a disqualification. It's a tag match. If you have a bunch of little people bouncing around and attacking one of the competitors, that's technically a disqualification, is it not? But you also have to consider this is a comedy match, so there is very much some leeway. And I think WWE was smart in that sense, because they know, they're like, people are not here to critique the rules of a comedy match. It's not happening. So that actually got a good pop. Honestly, Minihausen looked great in the ring. Danhausen, for the offense that he did get in towards the end of the match, he looked great. And he is insanely over right now. I believe he's top 2 merchandise seller, right behind Roman Reigns in WWE right now. Like, he's good. I know this. He's been good. And now he's finally getting a chance to shine, and I'm very, very happy for him. But Danhausen pins The Miz with a pump kick. I will say, my one critique about this match was I do not think it deserved to be on the Backlash PLE. I very much would have preferred to see this in the main event of SmackDown over the fucking funeral for the Gingerbread Man. 1000%. You're telling me this couldn't have main evented SmackDown? Come on. What are we doing? Io Sky versus Asuka. My personal match of the night. Both women showed up and they showed out. They were given so much time and they killed it. Everything they did was very smooth, very crisp. Both women have great chemistry with each other. And Io wins with her over the moonsault. Literally nothing else I could say. I would highly recommend that you guys go watch that match if you didn't watch the PLE live. Go watch Io Sky versus Asuka. It was very good. It went 18 minutes, and at the end of the match, Io and Asuka ended up hugging it out. And honestly, from my point of view, it seems that Asuka is going to be done for a good chunk of time. That's the way I portrayed it. And obviously, we got more of an answer on Raw without going into the big details, because realistically, why wrestlers decide certain things is nobody else's business. It is theirs and the company's, and that's it. So it seems like Asuka's going to be done for quite a while. But honestly, if this is just to take a break, she deserves a break. She's been doing this for a very, very long time. And she actually is a Hall of Fame caliber talent. So she deserves a little bit of a break. John Cena. That's right. John Cena, again. Man just cannot stay away after being retired. John Cena comes out and he announces the John Cena Classic. He says it's going to be an event where WWE versus NXT superstars are going to be going head-to-head with one another, be crowned the John Cena Classic champion. And yes, there is going to be a championship for this. However, the fans will be able to vote on the winners. Now, when I'm listening to this, as I'm watching on Sunday, I'm scratching my head and I'm going, so if the fans are able to vote on who is the winner and who is the losers, then why are we having pro wrestling matches? Do wins and losses no longer matter? Because that's my immediate thought. I'm like, if the fans are just going to vote, as essentially what we're doing is just turning 2010 reality TV NXT into a recreation of the John Cena Classic. If wins and losses don't matter, this is what they're going to do. But from the sounds of it, and as far as the news goes, I believe that they just sent him out there because they didn't even know quite what the John Cena Classic looked like. There was nothing for sure set in stone. It was go out there and make the announcement about it. Get people talking. Which, granted, I know you want to keep fan interest and people talking about the product, but you don't want it to be negative talk. Because negative talk, people are going to either tune out or they're not going to tune in. Especially in this scenario. And honestly, I will continue to say, having winners and losers needs to be a consistent thing. Wins and losses need to matter more. Lately, I feel like they don't matter enough. They need to matter more. And something I totally brushed over was we have the King of the Ring. Are we replacing the King of the Ring with this? If so, why? I want to understand why. The King of the Ring is traditional. It has history. It has meaning. This has nothing. Nothing. So I guarantee WWE and John Cena are eventually going to continue these talks and try to figure out what this is supposed to look like. And then they're just going to go from there. But either way, I'm taking all this shit with a grain of salt. I'm already expecting it to fail before it even starts. But I am going to hold out a sliver of hope if they can get all the rules and the details down pat. If they can't, then this shit is going to be an absolute disaster. And then the main event. Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu for the World Heavyweight Championship. This match was great. Both men showed up and they showed out. Roman wins with a spear after ramming Fatu's head into the exposed turnbuckle. But then after the match, Jacob Fatu no-sells the finish. He is up within 15 seconds of taking the spear and getting pinned. And he immediately locks in the Tongan death grip numerous times, over and over and over and over again. But the match itself was solid. I would at least give it an 8 out of 10. It went 18 minutes. The thing I loved about Backlash was the pacing. Show started, and you got your open, and they got time. Went to commercial break, anywhere between 5 to 7 minutes. Next match, they got time. More commercials. Next match, time. Commercials. You see where I'm going with this? This is how pro wrestling in 2026 should be paced. It should be structured in this way. The problem that I have with it, though, is that I wish these matches would feel more must-see. Versus, oh, these are our WWE superstars. They are always must-see. No, that's not always the case. I wish the stories and the matches were must-see. Can't miss television. That's a problem that WWE has had for years now. There are only a handful of times on my hand that I can count, times where I'm like, oh, I must sit down and watch this. Because I got to see what happens next. Or I got to see the outcome. I got to see who wins and who loses. WWE has such a hard time of having must-see TV. And it's a very easy fix. But TKO is so stupid and Triple H is so lazy that it's never going to change. They're just going to whip out their vacuums and suck your money until you got nothing left in them pockets. That's just what it is. Another thing, though, I will say that I appreciated about Backlash is each match before the entrances had a video package. WWE does such a great job with video packages. It makes me wonder why we don't get them enough. Give it to us more. Have it really enhance all storylines, on whether it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, PLEs. There should always be some sort of video package. Otherwise, the amount of times you're going to try to get somebody to watch your PLE and they're asking more questions than they have answers before going into it, it's just not a good look. It's really not a good look. But that was Backlash in a nutshell. I thought it was a good show. Things need to still improve, but yet they rectified a lot of the bad that came from WrestleMania 41 and a little bit of 42, and they tried to make up for it here. So I will give them a little bit of benefit for at least righting those wrongs. But now they need to consistently dial in on those. Look at what the things that are still wrong with the product and fix them. Turning back the clock a little bit, AEW Dynamite. Last week, Wednesday, Ted Turner passed away. The founder, CNN and Cartoon Network. He was also the owner of WCW. And he had a major impact with TBS and TNT. My thoughts and prayers do go out to Ted Turner and his family and friends, and as well as his acquaintances. He is going to be deeply missed. And without him, pro wrestling would look very, very different than what it is today. Dynamite. AEW Dynamite / Collision. This was a 3-hour special that they did on Wednesday. Tony Schiavone starts in the ring and he pays tribute to Ted Turner since he was around that time when he was around during the WCW days. Tony Schiavone then brings out Sting, and Sting pays tribute to Ted and what he means to him. And it ends with a 10-bell salute. I appreciated this for what it was, and I think the fans are smart enough that, this is real. We lost a very important figure in television and somebody that paid a very big price in this game. And the tribute, it was very short and sweet, but it did its job, and it ended with a 10-bell salute. First match, Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. Moxley ended up winning with a bulldog choke. This was for the Continental Eliminator. Honestly, it was a very easy match, very typical TV match. Moxley continues his reign as the Continental Champion. I think he is just on a roll, and there's no way that Juice Robinson was in a position to even vouch for a title match. Backstage, Will Ospreay training with the Death Riders. Will is struggling to do drills with them, but Moxley sits down and he says he is on death ground and he will be done if he doesn't get through his neck injury. He could easily take it easy and get paid just like everybody else. But instead, they know what he wants and he knows what he wants. And he needs to become the strongest weapon in AEW. Orange Cassidy versus Dax Harwood of FTR. Cassidy was out there with Cope and Christian, plus the Conglomeration and the Young Bucks. And Dax Harwood was out there with Cash and the Dogs. This was a double Jeopardy match, which I was so like, what the fuck is a double Jeopardy match? But they explained it. Double Jeopardy. If Orange Cassidy wins, his team gets a shot at the tag titles. If Dax wins, FTR gets a shot at the trios titles. So Orange Cassidy beats Dax Harwood. It was a very solid match. There's just so much going on the outside. It was so hard to pay attention to. I will be completely honest. And then post-match, a brawl immediately breaks out, and it leads to the babyfaces hitting their big moves on RPG Vice. Could care less. Segment time. Jericho comes out and says that he's done with the backstage antics and the beatdowns, and he immediately calls out Ricochet. Ricochet says he is tired and bored of making him look like a punk. So Ricochet challenges him to a Stadium Stampede match at Double or Nothing. Jericho accepts, but then he immediately gets attacked by the Demand, and that's when the Hurt Syndicate comes out and makes the save. So we're getting the Demand versus Jericho and the Hurt Syndicate for the Stadium Stampede. I'm curious to see if they're going to add anybody else to the Stadium Stampede match. But either way, I don't care about this feud. I don't really care about anything that's going on regarding Ricochet and Jericho. So all of this is very much null and void to me. Kazuchika Okada. He beats Brian Keith. This was very much a nothing match. This was a match to make Okada look good. After the match, Okada says he wants more. He wants more gold, and he wants a shot at the AEW World title. Which in my mind, talk about just making your championships look like shit. I understand the storyline of everybody wanting a shot at the AEW title, but if you have a title, that should be your number one priority. I don't know why Tony Khan and AEW has this tendency to just want all of their champions to fight each other. It just doesn't make sense. You're making your champions look stupid. Worry about your own title. And then eventually climb the ranks to get to the top. But either way, that's my little rant as far as that goes. Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida beat Harley Cameron and Mira Shirakawa in a little women's tag match. It was a solid match. Nothing crazy here. Essentially just trying to build up Chris Statlander and Shida to go after Divine Dominion for the tag titles. Backstage, Swerve says that he wants power. He says, real power is the man that nobody can stop. And from the most dangerous to the most wanted, he says he wants it all, and he is hunting Bandito. You know that match. Like I said last week, you guys want to go back and watch that episode. Watch last week's episode, episode 16. I literally said Swerve and Bandito is going to go stupid crazy. Which everybody knows it's going to go stupid crazy. Bandito immediately responds, and he says that he is, in fact, the most wanted, and if Swerve wants him, he is very easy to find. And then in the main event of Dynamite, Darby Allin retains the AEW title against Kevin Knight. Very solid TV match. Kevin Knight's very, very good. Darby is doing the best to be the fighting champion. But once again, we're going to circle right back around. Does any of this actually make sense? Was putting the title on Darby the right decision? The answer is no. It wasn't. After the match, it cuts from Dynamite right into Collision. MJF comes out and he says enough is enough and it's time to give him his rematch for the title. Darby says no, unless he puts something precious on the line. MJF laughs and he says, all right, I'll put my scarf on the line. Darby says no. He says, all right, we'll up the ante a little bit. Let me put my Dynamite diamond ring on the line. And he said no. He said, okay, fine. I'll put $1 million on the line for a rematch. Darby says no. He's like, I was homeless for years. Your money means nothing to me. And Darby then follows up, you want your rematch? You put your hair from Turkey on the line. And I'm sitting back, and as I'm watching this, I'm like, his hair? Out of all the things that he listed, you want his hair? And I saw a bunch of AEW fans and those fucking marks trying to justify the reasoning behind it, which granted, hear me out, I understand the reasoning behind it. A man losing his hair is very much a very scary feeling, especially when you have a nice head of hair. Obviously, MJF got hair implants because he was getting a receding hairline. Very much like me. Ready? Ta-da! Except the only difference between Max and myself, I'm not afraid to be bald. I know I look good. I know what I look like when I'm bald. I'm going to be just fine. Max, on the other hand, he is very skeptical, and he actually did not give a for sure acceptance. There's going to be a contract signing tonight for it, but we will wait until next week's episode to truly find out what happens and what goes down. Kazuchika Okada immediately then comes out and says he wants Darby Allin next week for the world title, which I already did see that Tony Khan immediately changed that match, and now he's giving Konosuke Takeshita a title match. Which, granted, those matches are going to go stupid. They're going to be awesome. But once again, as far as the storyline goes, what exactly are we doing? This run is not working. And part of me wants to blame Darby, but it's not Darby's fault. He's just doing his job. Tony Khan and AEW don't know how to book their babyface champions. Plain and simple. They don't know what to do. But either way, Konosuke Takeshita versus Darby Allin next week, or Darby Allin tonight, is going to be awesome. Will Ospreay is backstage with Renee, and Renee asks him, so are you officially a Death Rider? Ospreay then says, no, I will never be a Death Rider. So we're going to kind of have to wait and see what tonight looks like as far as that response goes, and hopefully we get some solid follow-up as to why he said that. Speedball Mike Bailey be AR Fox in very much an enhancement match. A lot of enhancement matches on AEW this week. Pac then has a video package and he proposes a title match to Darby Allin. So literally everybody at this rate is going after Darby. Next match we got was Jamie Hayter and She Beat Sky Blue. It was a longer match. I mean, it was solid. Both women looked good. But Jamie beats Sky Blue and teases that she wants Tekla for the world title. That match is going to be awesome. You know for a fact we're going to get it. It's going to be fun. Roosh squashes a local talent. Less than a minute. It's Roosh. They're building him up very, very good. I think they're doing a fantastic job with Roosh. I can't wait to see once they finally let him run. But no, he's getting over organically. And he's really fucking good, too. And then our main event, it was the Bang Bang Gang and the Young Bucks. So Ace Austin, Austin Gunn, and Colton Gunn versus the Dogs and the Death Riders, which obviously the Dogs, we got Clark Connors, Gabe Kidd, and Dave Finlay. And then for the Death Riders, we had Claudio, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta. Babyfaces ended up winning. Very, confusing, chaotic 10-man tag. Match was fine. It was whatever. Babyfaces win. Dynamite lacks direction right now. They lack an overall arcing story. Obviously, the main story is everybody wants a shot at Darby Allin. But there's no other true stories. The next closest big story that's going on is Will Ospreay and the Death Riders. I guess you could also throw Swerve and Bandito in there. Or you could throw Cope and Christian and FTR in there. But those don't hold a candle. Literally, the only major story that I would say of note that I actually was intrigued by was Ospreay and the Death Riders. Darby Allin's direction as champion has been completely underwhelming. And I hoped and pray to God that when MJF regains the world title, we get this ship steered right back on track, because you got Double or Nothing and then you got to build towards All In. This is where you go and you build your best matches with your best stories. But that was Dynamite. That was All Elite Wrestling in a nutshell. SmackDown. I wanted to try and avoid talking about this show, but here we are. Jacob Fatu starts the show. This is before Backlash. He says he's going to be taking that title, and since they were young, everybody saw a future in Roman, and nobody saw a future with him. He says he's not going to be the one that's going to fall in line. History will eventually repeat itself. The Usos then interrupt. Jimmy says he understands where he's coming from, and he is partially rooting for him, but the other side of him is actually trying to look out for him. Jay says he doesn't think, he's very much like him, and he is going to have to acknowledge Roman, whether he likes it or not. Jacob says he cannot lose, and to be fair, Jay never actually beat Roman, and Roman's not really about it, and Fatu will die for his family, and if the Usos interfere in any way, shape, or form, he will burn the family tree to the ground. Royce Keys then stops Fatu backstage, and he bigs him up. He then threatens Solo Sikoa. But Solo says there is room in the family for him, but the clock is ticking. First match of the night, Tiffany Stratton versus Kiana James for the United States Championship match. Tiffany ended up retaining. Kiana ran some leg heat, but yet Tiffany during the match would go from zero to hero, and it really just didn't sell the leg at all during her comeback. Julia, towards the end, popped up on the apron to distract the referee. Kiana goes for a roll-up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't count. Tiffany then knocks down Julia and hits the prettiest moonsault ever onto Kiana to retain the United States Championship. Sami Zayn is backstage with R-Truth during the quote-unquote visitation of the Gingerbread Man. I refuse to cover anything. R-Truth is playing up this like it's an actual funeral, and they're trying to make it funny. Throughout the entire show, they did this AI-generated bullshit of having the Gingerbread Man in the most iconic moments in WWE history. They showed him when Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant, when John Cena won his first WWE Championship, when the streak was broken at WrestleMania. All of these different moments, and they chat GPT'd the Gingerbread Man into every single one of them. It was funny for like the first 2 segments, then it got really annoying really, really quickly. Tama Tonga ended up beating Damian Priest. Tama Tonga and Solo popped up on the aprons to distract during a falsie. R-Truth comes out to make the save. Priest tells Truth that he has this by himself, which Tala then takes advantage, rolls him back into the ring, and delivers a chokeslam for the match. After the match, the MFTs are about to attack him, but out comes Royce Keys to make the save, and the MFTs call off their attack. They don't actually try to attack him, they just try to call everything off because they're trying to bring Royce Keys into the family. But let's talk about the one good segment from SmackDown. Gunther is backstage with Nick Aldis, and he's about to sign a contract for him to be on SmackDown. Paul Heyman then shows up, and right as he's about to sign, Cody Rhodes' music hits, and out comes Cody. He grabs the microphone, and Cody says that Gunther attacked him last week to say that he is next in line, and essentially called him out. Paul Heyman then interrupts Cody. He walks to the ring, and he says the favor that I mentioned to Gunther months ago was that he is getting a title match against you, but it won't be tonight. It will be at Clash in Italy, which is actually, I believe, in 2 weeks from now. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 2 or 3 weeks from now is Clash in Italy. Gunther has not signed the contract yet, and Paul Heyman then hands it over to Cody Rhodes. Cody asks if Paul is out there because he is simply out of options and people to advocate for, but Paul Heyman says no, but sooner than later, everybody needs a wise man. Gunther then immediately attacks Cody Rhodes in the ring, but Cody fights off the sleeper at least a good 3 times and stands tall in the ring. And he grabs the microphone and he pretty much egging Gunther, come on, come get some more. I said after I beat Randy Orton at Mania, I'm easy to find, but I'm hard to beat. This segment was actually solid. I will give it to WWE there. This segment was actually solid because not only does it give an explanation for the favor from Paul Heyman to Gunther, but now it gives a marquee match for Clash in Italy. And I feel like Gunther is ready to take that title off of Cody. Cody doesn't necessarily need the title right now. I know they were going to want to play up this QB1 agenda bullshit, but I feel like you need to double down and make Gunther the champion. And also in the segment, it teased something for the future. I don't know if you guys completely picked up on it. Cody Rhodes, I'll repeat it. He asked Paul Heyman if he's out here because he's out of options for people to advocate for. Paul Heyman said no. As a matter of fact, sooner rather than later, everybody needs a wise man. Could this be hinting at a Cody Rhodes heel turn with his manager being Paul Heyman? There is a possibility for that. I know a lot of people are saying Cody Rhodes is starting to feel stale. He's starting to feel boring. This would be the perfect time to have the Roman Reigns effect, turn him heel, and watch him just thrive like nobody has thrived before. One of my personal favorite quotes as far as a storytelling aspect, is from The Dark Knight. It's from Two-Face. You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That quote would work perfectly with Cody Rhodes. You have him last this long as the good guy. He finished his story. He was fired from WWE due to just feeling like he could be better, made himself better, came back, beat Roman Reigns, finished his story. But now he is the hunted. He could immediately become the bad guy and become this just maniacal, rich, cocky, arrogant, heel champion. We need more in-depth characters on the show. And I know people are going to eventually be calling for Cody Rhodes' heel turn. And when it happens, I am locked in and ready for it. Needless to say. Ricky Saints beats Matt Cardona. Uses the Rochambeau for the win. Solid little TV match. It only went about 7 to 8 minutes. Paige and Бრძ come out and they talk about how they are not just a nostalgia act. And that's when Fatal Influence interrupts them and comes out, and that they are going to be the ones that will take those tag titles from them. Lash and Nia come out and they said, no, Fatal Influence will not be those ones to take the tag titles from them. And they say to Fatal Influence to get to the back of the line, and they immediately attack Paige and Бრძ. This eventually leads to Rhea Ripley making the save, as well as Charlotte Flair and Alexa. And this is where we get our 6-woman tag match. We get Fatal Influence versus Rhea, Charlotte, and Alexa. The only noteworthy part of this match is towards the end of the match, Jade Cargill pulled down Rhea Ripley when the referee's back was turned. JC Jane then rolls up for the win. And that was, it was honestly a solid 6-woman tag match. And I, once again, for the second straight week, Fatal Influence has completely proved me wrong. I thought when they got called up from NXT that I was like, there's no way they're going to be booked properly. Like, there's just, I don't trust WWE to do their job. But no, WWE has actually done a very good job with booking Fatal Influence. So, round of applause. Royce Keys squashes Tama Tonga. It was a solid little TV match. I don't know why we're having Tama Tonga versus Royce Keys, especially when you're trying to continue the storyline of Tama Tonga eventually going to break away from the MFTs. That part just didn't make sense. But at the same time, I know you got to have somebody to build up Royce Keys, and ever since they started firing people, they're running out of options. So I guess somebody's got to have to take the pin. Sucks, but it is what it is. And then our main event. I didn't want to have to do this. Our main event. The Gingerbread Man funeral. Easily one of the worst creative booking decisions since Vince McMahon in 2019 with the Big Dog. This shit was so ass. And I actually turned it off midway through. I was so pissed off and so angry at what I was watching. I said I couldn't finish it. I literally could not stomach it. What I was watching was a mockery of professional wrestling. That's what we got in the main event of Friday Night SmackDown. It was a mockery of what pro wrestling is supposed to be. I was sick, absolutely sick, that we have to use Trick Williams and Little Yachty, as well as Sami Zayn, in this just nothing of a storyline. All because Sami is a ginger, and Trick Williams, being the, snappy, quick-witted, fun guy, called him Gingerbread Man. And now WWE has ran with it, and they abused every sort of ounce of story, any sort of ounce of legitimacy. This segment kills the love of pro wrestling. 1000%. Eventually, I went on Twitter and I watched the ending of it just because I had to see what happened. But Sammy got attacked, or actually, excuse me, Sammy attacked Trick Williams, and that's when Little Yachty, inside of the Gingerbread Man costume, does the dead man sit-up, and he grabs a kendo stick, which is in the colors of a candy cane, and he beats Sami Zayn with it. It was just to get in the head of Sami Zayn. That's all the segment was. That's what ended and main evented Friday Night SmackDown. Absolutely fucking stupid. So fucking disgraceful and disgusting. And it pisses me off. Monday Night Raw. This show is not much better. Don't even get me started. This week's episode of Raw felt exactly like last week's. I swear to God, if you look at the structure of last week and you match it up with the structure of this week, it's almost like it's identical. Roman Reigns starts the show. He's angered. He's angry. He's pissed off about how Backlash ended. He wants Jacob Fatu to acknowledge him, and if he doesn't, he will get him out of WWE. The show starts with the Vision. They come out and they cut a promo, and they talk about how Braun humiliated Seth, and the Vision start talking trash about the Street Profits. Joe Hendry then interrupts them, and he sings "Can We Fire Logan Paul?" playing off of the garbage that we got last week. Ends up leading to our very first match. We have Joe Hendry and the Street Profits versus Braun Breaker, Logan Paul, and Austin Theory. The babyfaces ended up getting the win when Seth Rollins came out and distracted the Vision, ended up hitting Braun Breaker when the ref wasn't looking, and that leads to a roll-up by Joe Hendry for the 1-2-3. After the match, a brawl breaks out. Austin Theory starts attacking Seth Rollins, and it leads to Braun Breaker calling for the spear, but that's when Angelo Dawkins comes in and makes the save. Seth Rollins then gets out of the way of the spear, and Angelo Dawkins gets hit with the spear. And then Seth takes care of Braun Breaker, but then Montez Ford saw all that happen, and he is pissed at Seth Rollins. Next match, we had Javon Evans versus... The next match we had Javon Evans versus Rusev. Javon Evans wins. It was a solid TV match. This is essentially just to enhance the fatal four-way turmoil between Penta, Javon, Rusev, and Ethan Page. Brie Bella and Page call out the Judgment Day, and the Judgment Day then attack them and say that they want the titles, and it ends with the Judgment Day standing tall, holding the tag titles. Backstage segment, Asuka passes the torch, quote-unquote, to Io Sky as she gets her send-off backstage. And from the sounds of it, like I said, from the Backlash post-show, it sounds like Asuka is not going to be on TV anytime soon. I wouldn't have booked this considering... Oops, excuse me. That segment immediately leads to Io Sky versus Sol Ruca. Now, this I personally would not have booked, and let me explain why. First and foremost, let's just get to the little details of the match. It started off very slow, the tempo was a tad off, and the chemistry, it took a little bit to develop. But once they got to the bigger spots about halfway through the match, then it actually ended up being all right. But Io Sky beats Sol Ruca as Sol goes for the Soul Snatcher. But as Io's about to feed in for it, she stops herself. Sol takes her own bump, and then that's where Io rolls her up 1, 2, 3. The amount of times I have to see a fucking roll-up as a finish on regular weekly television is starting to get very fucking annoying. Also, I would have not booked this match because you can't have Io lose coming off of a win against Asuka And Sol Ruka is obviously trying to vie for the Intercontinental title. And because she's so young, you don't want to bury your young talent too quickly. You don't want to have them just eat loss after loss and then get a title shot. That just doesn't make fucking sense. You could have easily slotted anybody else in this position instead of having these two go at each other. But if I had to be the booker, I guarantee they're leading towards a triple threat match between Sol, Io, and Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental title. Speaking of hot garbage, Obafemi comes out. Not him. He's not hot garbage. It's his open challenge that's hot garbage. Comes out and he says the open challenge is officially underway. Adam Pearce comes out and says that nobody this week has answered the challenge and it is officially canceled. Oba then storms past him, goes into Gorilla, grabs Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo and drags them out into the ring. And that's where the bell rings and we have a 90-second squash match between the Garzas and Obafemi. Way to make your tag division look even more shitty than it already is. And on top of that, you are dying to get some more tag teams. You need more tag teams, and you're going to feed them all to fucking Obafemi? Maybe if you would have had a legitimate plan for Oba after WrestleMania, then none of this shit would happen. It's disgusting. I'm sick of the open challenges. I'm sick of fucking roll-ups. I'm sick of being fed garbage on a weekly basis. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Backstage, Finn Balor attacks JD McDonough as Dominic is walking to the ring for his AAA Mega Championship match. Nothing crazy here, just enhancing the Judgment Day versus Finn Balor storyline. Immediately leads to the AAA Mega Championship match between Dominic Mysterio and the OG Americano. This was actually a really good match. There was a fun monkey flip spot off of the apron, which OG Americano smoked his head on the post. That spot looked fun, and it was unique, and it was different. And then it leads later on into the match. The other Americanos, Rayo Bravo and the Imposter Americano, a.k.a. Kaiser Americano, come out and distract OG. And then that's where Creed Americanos come in to make the save. But then as Kaiser Americano is still on the ringside, on the outside, OG Americano grabs him and he's trying to rip the mask off. And that's where Dominic Mysterio hits him with the 619, followed up by the Frog Splash to retain the AAA Mega Championship. And then in our main event, Roman Reigns comes out and Jacob Fatu is walking through backstage as Jay is trying to talk some sense into him. At this point, Jacob Fatu doesn't want to hear it, so he headbutts Jay and starts just marching to the ring. Here comes Jimmy Uso to try and cut him off and cut him down, but nope, that's not happening either. Fatu attacks Jimmy, and it leads to a stare-off between Roman and Jacob Fatu. Leads to a big brawl. Pretty much the exact same shit we saw last week. Tongue and death grip, Roman fights out. Superman punch, tongue and death grip, spear, go to the outside. Oh, more tongue and death grip, throw him into the post, rip off the announce table. More tongue and death grip, Roman fights out a little bit. Just kidding. Jacob Fatu, another tongue and death grip, leads to a powerbomb through the announce table. And as the show is about to go off the air, Jacob Fatu rolls into the ring, holds up the world title, and as he's about to walk towards Gorilla, he turns right back around and he slams his body through Roman Reigns and through the barricade as the show goes off the air. Pretty much the exact same shit we saw last week. Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu need to get this story going immediately. outside of all the stuff we've seen for the past 3 weeks now, nothing new has changed. Nothing has been evolved. There has not been any new developments as the story has progressed. There's no big stipulations other than Jacob needs the world title and Roman needs him to understand that there's levels to this and he's not ready yet. Nothing outside of that has made any sort of logical sense. That is why when I said at the beginning of this episode, if you missed anything pro wrestling, you missed nothing. And I'm happy you didn't have to sit through this. Because this shit is garbage. But what's not garbage is the NBA playoffs. At this point, we are getting down to figuring out who those conference championship matches are going to be. OKC, the Thunder, swept the Lakers in the second round, and the Knicks swept the 76ers from the east side in the second round. And then the other two matchups we got are actually really solid matchups. We got the Pistons and the Cavs, which are tied 2-2 out of the east. And we have the Spurs and the T-Wolves, which are tied 2-2 out of the west. Like I said, obviously my predictions are going to be the T-Wolves are going to play the Thunder. And the Pistons, I could see sneaking out to play the Knicks, but part of me wants to see the Cavs win for whatever reason. But either way, I do feel like I'm rooting for the T-Wolves to pull off the upset over the Spurs. Going to be kind of exciting to see. Obviously, I know for a fact I'm a very casual basketball fan. I keep track of it here and there, but I'm not a diehard. I don't study it. I'm just go with the flow. If it's on, I'm going to watch it. If not, it's just not going to happen. That's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications. You guys can also follow me on all social media platforms. That is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at JariSpectre. You guys can also follow the SpectreVerse on Facebook as well. That is at the SpectreVerse. And you guys, anytime you follow that page, you will see when a new podcast comes out every Wednesday. And you will also see some brand new content coming going forward. First time you're going to see it, it's going to be on the Facebook. Otherwise, if you have the bell turned on, you will immediately be notified when that new content goes up and live. And before I wrap things up here, there's plenty of content already that you guys can gladly check out. You guys can check it out here. And I don't know if you guys saw what I'm wearing. This is the sneak preview of the new Spectre hoodie. It's time. Peace out.
Summon the Spectre.